Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
It's for the people who are wondering why we're in the streets and we're outraged. It's basically a rundown of what's happens, and this is recent. And it's if you run, you die. Hashtag Walter Scott. If you stay and get arrested, you die. Hashtag Freddie Gray. Lay down while handcuffed, you die. Hashtag Eric Harris. Hashtag Oscar Grant. If you fight back, you die. Hashtag Trayvon Martin. If you mind your business, you die. Hashtag John Crawford. Put your hands up, you die. Hashtag Mike Brown. Proclaim your innocence, you die. Hashtag Eric Garner. Getting married, you die. Hashtag Sean Bell. Pansagging, you die. Hashtag Irvin Edwards. Beg for your life, you die. Hashtag Thaddeus McCarroll. Hashtag Cedric Barty. Just alive at 12 years old outside playing, you die. Hashtag Tamir Rice. Be outside, you die. Hashtag Rekia Boyd. Be at home chilling, you die. Hashtag Katherine Johnston. Run into your home, you die. Hashtag Ramarley Graham. Injured asking for help, you die. Hashtag Jonathan Farrell. Be in a stairwell, you die. Hashtag Akai Gurley. Smoke a cigarette, you die. Hashtag Sandra Bland.
Well, I want to say a big good evening to everybody joining us right here live on World Jam Global Radio for another absolutely enthralling and exciting and challenging edition of Issues Today. I've got some guests with me today, and we are still waiting for Ronnie Canada to arrive, and he'll be arriving very shortly. He's just on his way back, and I'll get him in as soon as we can. But with me today, we are going to Albuquerque. We've got Andy Christopherson, we've got Dinah Vargas, we've got my regular co-host and Shotgun Rider, who is back, and we wish him so well, as we prayed for him last week because he was very ill, but he is back with us today, Dr. David Remay. We've got Team Den Mum, we've also got Outlaw representing Anonymous, and we will be looking at particular events, recent events that has been taking place right over the Wildwood internet, and talking about one or two things. First and foremost, let me just introduce my co-host, my very dear friend. We missed him so much, and we do want to be updated with the news as it is in America. Speak to me, Dr. David Remay.
Hello, my good friend Kervin. I'm so happy to speak over the great Atlantic Ocean from my little abode in Connecticut and be with all of our good friends here who fight for justice. And thank you for your good thoughts and prayers. Somebody's typing furiously. Thank you for your...
Well, at least it's not you this week, David.
Well, I only plead guilty when I'm forced to do so. I want to begin by saying something that's more macro, or rather global, than I normally do. Someone asked me on Twitter the other day, why do I do this show? And why do I fight so consistently and determinedly against the power that oppresses so many of us? I want to say it's for one reason, and I can put it in two sentences. The wealthy and powerful of this nation have nothing but contempt for the poor and the weak. The police and military enforce their wealthy people's claim to property they have largely stolen using corrupt banking laws, government contracts, and political corruption. This, my friends, is why I fight, to end the American empire and to reestablish the American Republic, a nation of the people, for the people, and by the people. Now, let me bring you up to date about what is happening over the pond here in America. President Barack Obama, the first African-American president in the history of this great nation, continues to surpass 95% of all the men who have ever sat in the White House. And I only exclude two among them, and that's Washington and Lincoln, the founder and the consolidator of our nation. Unemployment continues to drop from 10.5% to now 5%. The budget deficit Bush left of $1.3 trillion is now barely $350 billion. The Iran deal, which was opposed by every puppet of Israel and Sheldon Adelson, is now working more than we ever dreamed. Sheldon Adelson.
Hey, Charlie, you need to turn that down in the background, mate, if you're going to come in.
You hear me?
I can, but you're going to need to turn down what's in the background. It's coming right through.
Now, the Navy sailors who by accident sailed into the waters of Iran were taken, 11 Americans, by Iran. And within 24 hours, no threats, no shock and awe, no pounding the chest like a gorilla escaped from Uganda, nothing. They were released. And all the Republicans were screaming bloody murder about these Iranians taking our Americans. But I ask you, my friends and listeners, what do you suppose the United States of America's military forces would do if Afghanistan, Iraq, or Iran sent 11 armed sailors and a military ship within our sovereign territorial waters? I know what happened to the Americans taken to Guantanamo. I know what happened to the Iraqis at Abu Ghraib. I know what torture, shock, and awe are. And what Iran did was none of those grotesque things. Now the Republicans continue to say that the $150 billion that will be returned are available, rather, to Iran after today is our money. I remind the world, that is not America's or Europe's money. That is Iranian money. And we are returning it after 2 decades of embargoing it. We are returning them their money. The money we send, the $5 billion every year to Israel, is our money. There is a difference. Now, what does all of this mean? A new era in Middle East politics is developing. The Kerry-Obama doctrine is to restore Ayatollah Khomeini Iran to the Persian Gulf as a type of Johnson-Kissinger-Nixon arrangement in which the hegemony of the Persian Gulf will go back to Iran. And that is the most stable it was ever in the history of the world from the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Obamacare has 18 million enrollees, and America has the lowest number of health uninsured Americans in our history. Another great success denied by the delusional Republicans. Furthermore, medical costs, hospital costs, pharmaceuticals have continued to drop in exact contradiction of the predictions of disaster by the Republican propagandist wing of the American political spectrum. Now the election, and I'll wrap it up. Coming down to the election, as the Republicans held their last debate the other night, it is Trump and Cruz. Trump and Cruz, the New York City secular bigot billionaire and the Cuban-Canadian Texas evangelical pervert and religious zealot Cruz. And it's a sad day in America when the best the party of Abraham Lincoln can put up are two vandals and goths that mean nothing to civilization except disaster. Then we have Mr. Chris Christie, the bridge gate monster of New Jersey, who got into office as an attorney general of the U.S. government by giving hundreds of thousands of other people's money to Bush Jr. in his disastrous 8 years of infamy in the White House. He bragged the other night that he vetoed, that is, he canceled the requirement for an ID, an identification photo, for those people who own guns in his state. But have no fear, those who wish to exercise their right to vote have to have an ID. And in that way, he makes sure the poor and the blacks and the Hispanics do not vote. Now, Trump continues his anti-American and anti-Muslim hatred and bigotry to the shame of the world. And Cruz is in an imbroglio of a hurricane-type disaster because of his natural-born non-status and the Goldman Sachs millions. Ted Cruz reminds me of a sardine eating a salamander, slippery and slimy. And Marco Rubio, he hates all things Clinton and Obama. He's a Cuban banana on steroids, slipping into oblivion as the puppet of Israel's master Sheldon Adelson, the crooked China gambling Las Vegas princess, continues to finance the most radical anti-Americans in the world. And finally, Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush, the man who is entitled, the man whose brother was the worst president in the history of America, the man whose father has the wimp factor, the man whose grandfather was a Nazi sympathizer. Jeb Bush has become a 3% nocturnal emission from the era of shock and awe. And that's the way it is in America.
Wow, thank you very much, David. And that was an absolutely, once again, fantastic introduction to the news as it is in the United States of America, given by our very own Dr. David Remay, who we're going to hear a lot more of as this show progresses. Now, as you guys well know, the last couple of weeks we have featured first Trolls the Damage is Done, and then we followed up last week with Restructuring Community, which basically started off with us looking at the behavior and the psychology of the trolls, but we wanted to move that on and try and work our way as to how do we progress from there, restructuring the community, rebuilding the community, bringing a message of hope, and setting up some support. And for that, immediately, from the week before it was instigated, we initiated a new group called Team Den Mother, which is headed up by none other than Mama herself. And I'm going to just invite Team Den Mum to come in now and give us an update on where we're at with that particular event. So Team Den Mum, it's over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. Wait, am I on?
Yeah, you're on. You're here. We can hear you.
Hello, Den Mom. We hear you.
Hello, David. Hello, Kevin. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry, my headset was being a little peculiar today, for once. And thank you so much for the lovely intro. And I do wish to stress that, yes, we have been dealing so heavily with trolls, and in fact, I'm about to deal with them a little bit more, but there's so much more about community and love and trust that we are, in fact, about. This has really just been a very hot topic of late, and it bears consideration. So with that in mind, for starters, it's come to our attention that there are, in fact, some listeners among our very own trolls. And Team Den Mother would like to give a very hearty hello to all of Issues Today's loyal fans among the stick-poking community. We sincerely hope that you do enjoy today's program. TDM would also like to correct a few misconceptions that are apparently rampant in that community. There have been many accusations leveled at not only us, but just ordinary individuals not affiliated with TDM who've employed the OPATROL hashtag. Now, this hashtag is being used to combat hate speech and online harassment. And as TDM often reminds our followers, we monitor but do not, in fact, we cannot manage it directly, as it is a public resource for the Twitter community. This week in OPATROL news, allegations have been made running the gamut from cyberbullying, and I quote, "We've been transferring the hate," unquote, to being solely responsible in some mysterious fashion for tanking Twitter's stock value. I wouldn't know how to begin doing that, but thank you for the high compliment on our economic abilities there. We would like to remind the ones making these highly amusing statements that we are in fact talking about a hashtag. So with that in mind, here are a few corrections to some opinions currently held about our team. Please note that each of these does in fact come directly from tweets which are publicly viewable on the @TeamDenMom timeline, and they are in no way exaggerated. So, despite repeated allegations, we would like to state for the record that no member of Team Den Mother is now nor has ever been a white separatist. In fact, we are not all white, so that would just be plain weird. Similarly, we have never called for a quote-unquote black genocide. That is not only an utterly repugnant notion, but would leave us without Kervin, and by extension, this very amazing radio program. Moving right along from that notion, some people would claim that Kervin himself is a very hateful individual, and this made him sad.
Very sad, very sad.
We find this all the more astonishing since many of these same people have referred to him and other black people, and you'll have to pardon me for the foulness of this, but it is a direct quote. They have referred to him as a feral Negro.
Oh, don't forget with limited IQ.
Oh, absolutely, yes. We've all been having our IQs called into question quite a bit, haven't we?
That is, wait, that's not true. Kervin has had his rabies shots. He cannot be feral.
Very true.
I'll have to check those tags the time I see you. With that in mind, though, the whole feral notion, we invite all of you listeners, if you stand on the side of right, to join us in using our very newest hashtag, Team Feral, to show your support for all of those suffering from this sort of hate and apparently that, diatribes leveled at us from the more quote-unquote civilized users of Twitter. Finally, and perhaps most bizarre of all, there is this, and I cannot stress this one enough. We are none of us, nor the team as a whole, affiliated with, or on the payroll of any organized crime. To our dismay, we must all hold down regular professional jobs and do this work of building a viable activist community in what time remains to us in each week. That is just a fact. We have learned to live on ramen. If organized crime wants to get in touch, I suppose that's their business, but I don't think we'll bite. In absolute serious, no. This is not a laughing matter. And comical as these accusations may sound after the fact, individuals and these organized groups are on Twitter and they're on other platforms. They are spreading this hate and this divisiveness. And we're very proud to report that over this past 2 weeks since the initial broadcast about trolls, the OpaTroll hashtag and other efforts within this community have successfully encouraged Twitter support to take a firmer hand in dealing with these online bullies. Twitter has been encouraged to more aggressively and consistently enforce its own policies regarding abuses aimed to silence people. And in the words of one of these trolls themselves, it is working. A large number of the most vile and abusive trolls have been removed from the platform for their abusive tweets. Others have been suspended and are under investigation, and thus the Twitter sphere is slowly but gradually being freed up for persons of all views to reasonably and respectfully engage in the discourse that is essential to any functioning democracy. And thank you very much. That is my not-so-amusing news of the trolls. Thank
you very much for that very informative update, Denmom. And just remember, please, if you are suffering from being victimized in any way by cyberbullies, trolls, or any of the likes, if you're involved in any kind of activism and you find yourself coming under attack just for your views, your beliefs, or your opinions, please use the hashtag OpaTroll at Team Den Mother, and we will respond and try and find a best way to support you or signpost you to where you can get the relative support that you need. Now, on top of that, we've also had, just to add on to what Team Den Mother has been saying, some of the most ridiculous statements that have been coming out, and one in particular that we want to highlight is this one where they're referring to it's only Twitter. It's not the real world. Well, it is the real world because people are actually having their thoughts, their feelings absolutely trashed. There are people who are replicating themselves, pretending to be people that they're not, interfering, jumping on threads, intimidating and victimizing innocent people who are used, and some of them, don't forget, use Twitter or use the internet because it's their only means of communication. And when you are talking about a disabled community as well, who cannot go to work as some of us with all of our limbs can, and have to use the computer for them to be able to operate, it's easy for some to say, well, if you're getting bullied, just turn off the computer. Well, some of these people can't turn off the computer because they need their computers to work. And for them to be constantly visually seeing these rude and offensive comments and statements coming out of them is a very dark place indeed. And some people are not just hurt, some people are not just offended, some people are scarred because we're all coming from a very hurtful and hateful society. And what we want to do right here at Team Den Mother is operate under the hashtag Love Wins, because love is the answer. And that's where we're going to go, and we're going to go straight over to Outlaw, who's going to talk to us about the restructuring of the community and his thoughts and his opinions on that very same subject. Outlaw, good evening, sir, and how are you?
All right, how about you?
Well, I'm very well, and it's great to have you on the show once again. And just to inform our listeners, Outlaw will become a regular on the show, and also as part of the production team of Issues Today. So we've got a bigger team coming together to be able to bring you something that's a lot more tangible. So go ahead, Outlaw, the floor's yours.
All right. The thing about the trolling is it has its place. Freedom of speech, I'm a huge advocate for it, and so are pretty much every anon you will ever meet. Hell, a lot of us started out trolling ourselves. That being said, there is a fine line between trolling and cyberbullying to the point of it affecting somebody's real life. Sometimes when you're trolling, you don't realize that you might be affecting somebody's real life, but there are warning signs, and we may just send you a friendly little message, or join in the epic rules on your page to show you exactly how stupid some of the things you are saying are. But I got a message for all the trolls out there that are trying to cause infighting and discord within the community that we are trying to build to make the world a better place. If you have a talent to make your voice heard, why would you use it to make the world a worse place and to drive us apart? Why not use it for something good? Why not make the government hear you? Make the lawmakers hear you? Make the police hear you so they shut the fuck up? Why aren't you using your skills for something a little bit more positive? There's all kinds of options and choices that we make with our lives. And really, if you're going to make a stand on something, then make that stand. If you're just there to troll and move on, drop your funny comment and leave. We'll ignore you just as, you wish to be ignored.
Now, let me add in here a minute. It seems to me that in the history of the world, since the printing press and other new advancements following that, to share our opinions, the world corporations and the ones with capital, the empire, the king, the prince, whoever, held the sole monopoly over our access to reach other people. In America, since time immemorial, until the beginning of the internet, the entire process of being heard was held in the hands of huge corporations and millionaires who controlled our newspapers, radio, and television. For the first time, probably since the Stone Age, the vast majority of humanity has an equal opportunity to share his or her opinion. And we can fully expect, just as great writers in the past have been censored and berated and threatened and beat up for sharing their views in the newspapers, magazines, and television and radio, we also are going to be beat up for sharing ours. The difference is if I wrote an article in the New York Times, I had to wait a week or two to read the editorials condemning me, the letters to the editor. Today, it's urgent. And not only is it urgent, but the internet gives people tools to look up your divorce papers, your criminal record, your bank account, your credit report, and they spill that out all over the internet, and it shocks people and it harms us because a basic tenet of our privacy is so invaded and our lives are so threatened that it diminishes our will to speak up when we must speak up. And this is where the trolls come in, like termites, undermining an entire village, eating one piece of wood and another piece of wood. And what we have to do is be strong enough to put a resin over that wood that they cannot penetrate. In fact, to welcome them, because this is a nation of amnesia. And people don't really remember anything beyond 24 hours. So we have to keep hitting and hitting and hitting and not take it too personal. Although when one does stretch over the line and attack us in a personal way that diminishes our right to express ourselves as guaranteed by our laws and Constitution, that's when we have to hit back.
Absolutely, David, and I couldn't have said it better if I'd have tried. For me...
On that point...
Go ahead.
On that point, the internet provided us a huge resource to be able to communicate. However, with the recent passing of the TPP and all that, the powers that it was granted, now they have right to pull down things off the internet stating something about a copyright law, and there's no one to contest it, and they can do this regardless. So what they're doing is they're trying to censor us out so that we can't communicate with each other. And thus
explain that, Anonymous, explain that TVP law a little more for those who don't know it.
All right. Well, the TPP is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and it is basically a backroom trade deal that the people have nothing to say about. So they decide what goes on, who trades where, and we can't really have an input. We if we were to call them out on something, or we were to trade goods, services, entertainment, or something like that they don't agree with, then they basically have the ability to put that to a halt, and they will use whatever means necessary to stop that. They're starting to test and flex their powers and see what can happen. And the first thing they're going to do is target activists and independent media, especially. There was an article that I think I shared with Kervin and Charlie not too long ago that gave basically an officer the right to arrest independent journalists if they were seen as what's the word I'm looking for here? If they were seen as hostile, or if they were seen belligerent, and they're questioning, or basically if they're asking the questions that they don't want to answer, and they can arrest them on the suspicion of being a terroristic spy, and do all kinds of crazy stuff there, and then the NDAA takes place, and you go to a black site, and it's So the powers that be are already trying to do everything they can to control us and shut us up. So the best thing we can do is unite together and speak anyways.
Well, that's absolutely spot on. And again, what we see from the outpouring of what we've done over the last couple of weeks is how much we are generating interest in that particular community, where people are being drawn to the Team Den Mum and the Love Wins hashtag, and people are actually contacting us direct by direct message, and that's not just one or two of us. Every single one of us on Team Den Mum and Issues Today have been contacted at some point over the last couple of weeks by individuals who support or work with activist groups, who are family members of people that have been victimized by brutality or death, and they have contacted us telling us about what we are doing, how much it means to them, and how much they can use the support that we're offering. So,
and if I may, on that topic, I just want to say that, again, battling the worst of the cyberbullies is absolutely valuable work, but that is the payoff at the end of the day for us. That psychic revenue that shows that people truly do need this support. They need someone they can reach out to, that they can build trust with, that they can rely upon, even just for a booster. It's so unbelievably touching to every member of this team to see the following continue to grow, and the number of people who truly seem to need the resources and community that we're all trying to provide in our own different ways.
And absolutely, and the most important thing is to remember, and we've said it several times, and Team Den Mum said it in our opening spiel, is that we are operating under the non-transference of hate. We're not asking people to join with us so that we can go. In fact, the way to win over the trolls, and I do believe that there will be trolls that will come over and come and join us in our fight for equality and the human rights, good human rights.
The sad thing is these trolls who have no purpose other than to disrupt our conversation, to bring about a more equitable and just society, have no idea that they're pawns doing the work of the king and the queen on the chessboard. They are the pawns who are going to be the fodder in the fight for justice. And they don't even understand they're siding with the enemy instead of with us. It's like these women who have 4 children. They work at McDonald's. They get minimum wage. They have no health care insurance, and they vote Republican. Explain that to me.
Well, Den Mum, respond.
I'm certainly not sure that I can explain that one in some cases. My God, the issues, I mean, they're just, at the risk of digressing slightly, I have no idea. Is somebody drumming? I feel like somebody's drumming.
Somebody was hitting away at their keyboard, and they need to be muting their mic when they do so, because it has a terrible impact on the show.
And it is terribly distracting. I'm sorry about that. The distraction of the tappity-tap drumming did sort of distract me slightly from the question. Could you reframe that for me just briefly?
What I'm trying to say is, why is it that so many people in America, for example, and in Europe, vote against their own economic, educational, religious, and cultural interest? And it's equivalent, in a way, to these trolls who get on the internet and disrupt those of us who are fighting daily with our energy, money, power, and time to bring about a better world, a more just world for them. And they are disrupting us. What is the purpose? That is true. Why are they doing it? Why are they doing this?
Some people are so helplessly, they're helplessly dependent on the system that takes place that they will fight to remain a slave.
What do you mean?
They don't realize how much control is going on. The strange part about it is they got anybody who's an activist, anybody who's got anything to say on any controversial subject, the government has a file on each individual via our social media platforms, and they try to keep up where everybody's at. They spy on us endlessly through social media, through mass surveillance, and our really only combat that we had is to unite in community, and that strong community is the thing that makes government control not necessary. And for us to say that, we want government to get involved on social media platforms is kind of a double-edged sword, because really we should be able to police ourselves. Otherwise, you're creating a problem where we're going to need the government to step in, or some people will think the government needs to step in. And then laws are passed, and it gives the government more power. And now we're all being censored. We can't say what we want to say. We can't say what we're thinking. And if we do, we might go to jail. We might get, the internet bans, whatever, right now. But it can progress and get a lot worse for us.
If I may launch off of that a little bit, just my additional response to that is that effectively, the education system that exists in this culture anymore is not designed to create inquisitive, participatory individuals. It really is not. And the difference between reasoned discourse and just talking, the difference between reading and researching, the difference between an informed participant in society or an election or anything else and just somebody who reads headlines is getting very, very vague. And what is our new background noise?
I don't know. Somebody is either making some strange noises or doing some strange things.
The sound's gone feral. It's gone feral.
It's gone feral.
There's a warthog.
We are responding to our name tag.
Yes.
Somebody is anyway.
That is an octopus coming out of Donald Trump's pocket, sucking up the world.
Or is it not coming out of Donald Trump's backside? Sorry, I didn't say that.
All of it is possible.
Was it me coming through, Irvin?
There is a noise coming through. I'm not sure what it is or who it is, but there is a noise coming through in the background.
Who's the latest person to join us?
I'm trying to come through.
Okay, well, Ronnie, you're here. We can hear you. You are live. I can see you in the room, but we haven't called you in yet because we're right in the middle of something.
Yeah, and I'm nearly done.
But there is some background noise coming from somebody, and somebody needs to mute their mic.
That's the Canadian nor'easter he's brought in.
And it's gone. It's gone. All right, I'm going to finish my bit before it gets bad again. It seems to come when I talk, so I'm going to try to avoid talking too much for a change. The very fact of the matter is that people of any age at this point, there's the wondrous thing about the age of information is we have access to so much of it, but it does sort of create this essential fallacy that all information is of equivalent weight. And I think, this pertains to every argument we've had with any of these trolls where it's like, well, I'm entitled to my opinion. That's actually true, you are, but maybe it's not actually correct. And maybe we should be able to debate the finer points of this matter. And it also extends outward into society to the very largest pictures of everything ranging from elections to how we structure society to what the economic outlook should be and how we arrange our families and our lives and our nations and the world as a whole. I mean, it's all tied together. And so the reason I think that people vote against their interests is because it's so hard to even establish who adheres to your same value set, who actually adheres to a plan that will, in fact, improve your condition, because so much is hot air on not just the internet, but the debates and everywhere else. All information is not equal, and every individual really does need to start doing their part, in my opinion, to research and be an informed participant in society, to become an actual contributing member in some fashion. And everybody has a role, everybody has their strengths. Not everybody's going to understand economic policy. It's tangled stuff. But there's things that everyone has the ability to understand and engage with, and that's where the collective mass of wisdom and activity makes a difference.
Well, just to tie this up before we move on, and we do have to move on because we've got a hell of a lot to go on in this show, and we've got time is fast running out, believe me, and 2 hours seems like nothing once we start getting into this nitty gritty. But I operate on the premise that hurting people hurt people. The biggest problem we have in this particular environment is that these hurting people are hurting people that are already hurting, and that's where we draw the line. You have people that are grieving for the loss of their family or loved ones, or or family members or people that they know, and these trolls are inviting themselves into these people's lives and worlds, and just making their lives even worse than it already is, without no respect for the individuals who are living the way that they're living. Now, for me, that has to stop, and we will do whatever we see fit from where we are to bring that to an abrupt end. And so therefore, wherever you raise your ugly head, let me just tell you this: from this quarter, from this station, we're coming, and we're coming for you. So you can sit down there and you can create whatever fake ID and whatever fake world that you want, but we're coming for you, and we're coming for you positively, but not to be like you, because we will not redistribute the hate. We will not transfer the hate. Love wins. Hurting people hurt people, and whatever your reason is for trying to hurt people, what we're trying to say to you is these people are hurting enough, and we're going to try and find a way to bring that to an end. Now, I just want to thank everybody that took part in that first opening. It was very powerful. I think we got our message across, but we have Andy Christopherson, who is also waiting, and our very own beloved friend Ronnie Canada has eventually arrived, half an hour late, mind you, Ronnie, but you are here. Ronnie?
Seemingly.
He's gone again.
Oh!
Okay, Ronnie has gone again. I was going to try and call him in, but he's gone again. Here he is. Ronnie, are you there now?
I'm here.
Okay, so
Hello, Ronnie.
Hello.
So Ronnie, first and foremost, there was a tremendous response to your being on the show last week, and we talked about the fact that your track that we used to use as our opening track got our show outed or booted out, and we do have official the email confirmation of Ronnie and his partner's permission to use that track, which we're going to be using again from next week. But this week, ladies and gentlemen, live on World Jam Global Radio's Issues Today on Saturday the 16th of January, we do have Ronnie Canada, who's going to actually perform the track live. How are we doing, Ronnie?
I'm okay, Kervin. How we doing? All right?
I'm good. Are you ready to perform this track for us?
I have to write this thing out, man. I haven't sung this song and I don't know when, but...
Then you're going to have to get in there, because we've got an hour and a half left to bring in the rest of this show. We needed to have you in at the top. You were late, so we don't mind that, because we love you so much, but we're going to need you to deliver that now so we can actually introduce Andy and get on to the matter, or the patter that matters, so to speak. The floor's yours, Ronnie.
Going to have to be an acapella.
There, let's do the acapella.
That sounds lovely.
Here we go. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. I'll do you a short version. Back in the day, I didn't really care about the system. It was all about survival. It was do or die. I had too many rivals. I was too young to stay in school. I learned my lessons in the street. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was good with my hands and very quick with my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need a gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail, trying to cope with this living hell. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got high on my own supply. I'm not proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm telling my story to you and you. I had to repent. I must admit, I was doing all kinds of stupid shit. Now I sit back and think it over. Since I've gotten older, the life I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb. My brain was numb. I was the real Forrest Gump, but I was nobody's chump. Me and Billy the Kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'd chew you up and spit you out like a real alligator, especially all you haters. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I'm trying to get this felony off my back so I can get my life back on track and have the right to vote and live like an ordinary citizen again. This is my message to all of my friends in the pen, statewide, worldwide. There was not a man I couldn't beat. I was so good with my hands and very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street. I was getting money. Life was so sweet. Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged. I'm a changed man. Don't need no gun in my hand. It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too short to spend it all in jail, trying to cope with this living hell. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I already did my time. I paid for my crime. I was a drug dealer, sold more drugs than Superfly, but I never got home my own supply. And then there's some singing in there, which I went, well, 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 well. Okay.
Well, there's a round of applause.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Let's give it up for Ronnie Canada, live, a cappella style, on Issues Today, World Jam Global Radio.
That was epic.
All those drive-by killings, stop it. That ain't about nothing. And he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone. Put down those knives. Stop stabbing each other. I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ronnie. We really do appreciate you coming out and giving us your time like this and sharing those words of encouragement with us that has inspired many people throughout the years. And do remember that you can hear Ronnie Canada, his music, on World Jam Global Radio and specifically on Dr. Feelgood's Wake Up Everybody Sunday Gospel Show.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to add a new verse.
Go, give me a new verse, Ronnie.
And all those trolls, I'm going to put you on hold. But you can't control the soul of this radio program.
Wow, come on, hit it in there. Now you need to re-record that and just drop that in there. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Ronnie, once again, thank you so much, but you are welcome to stay part of the show, contribute as you did last week, or you're free to leave at any time you choose. Well, we need to kind of transition and move over to our next guest, who has been patiently waiting for almost 45 minutes now to get in on a subject that is very important to us and our listeners on World Jam Global Radio. Good evening, Andy Christopherson.
Hey, Kervin. How's it going?
How are we doing, Andy?
Good. I've had plenty of coffee, so let's roll this.
Okay, well, listen. Just give us a bit of a briefing on what's going on in Albuquerque at the moment, and then we'll start going into some of the things that you really wanted to talk about.
Well, honestly, I wouldn't even know where to start. Almost the latest big news going down here, and we talked about on the program before about the records requests that we were doing down here. Well, our records custodian had filed whistleblower protection against the city for he had been denying records, and now he's filing suit against the city to protect himself for complete violations, and now a bunch of people are going down in that. There's a officer who's in court for beating a homeless man after turning his lapel camera off, and he's pleading his case to try to keep his job. There's a bunch of stuff going on.
Okay, but you really wanted to hit something in particular today, and I'm trying to find a list of stuff that we should have had, but it hasn't been sent to me, and I really deeply apologize for that. The
Jaquise Lewis case is going on also. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah.
Jaquise Lewis was a 17-year-old black kid who was shot at a skate park in northeast Albuquerque, and for several weeks, APD had kind of covered it up and didn't charge the guy that shot him, and they were saying that it was self-defense, that Jaquise Lewis had shot at this crowd of people, and then he was shot back in self-defense. But it turns out after a legal fight over the videos, a judge ordered the release of all the videos, which APD, for whatever reason, was holding, and it shows that Jaquise Lewis was actually shot as he was walking away. But as I looked at that video closely, it does show Jaquise Lewis getting a gun from his friend, pointing it and firing. But at the time that he was shot in the back, he was walking away. The Jaquise Lewis family is claiming that the guy that shot him, his parents are Albuquerque first responders. So that sort of linked why they hadn't released any of the videos. It shows differently than what happened. And now they're claiming that an APD detective actually coached the shooter on how to go about the self-defense claim. And we don't know which department this shooter's parents were from, but it's becoming evident that they're related to somebody in the city, and that's why they covered it up. And now a New York Times reporter is here doing a story on it. Our mainstream media won't touch it, but the New York Times is here, so that's a humongous case going on. Not only
we'll let us. Sorry, Andy.
Once again, they deny.
Well, let us open it up on this show.
The video that it was on.
Well, if they're not going to touch it where you are, let's open it up where we are. What you've just suggested here, what you've said, is almost comparable to the Kendrick Johnson case, in which as much as you've got two sons of the FBI feds who are supposed to be implicated in this, and everything is being covered up in order to protect them, their father, his job, and everything else. So you've got a comparable case there. So tell us a bit more about the foundation of this particular issue. I mean, you're talking about a guy who was he was armed then. Was he armed with a gun?
He wasn't armed at first. In the early parts of the video, you can see that he doesn't have a gun. But I slowed this video down, frame by frame, and you can see him taking a gun from his friend or somebody that's walking by. And then he walks over and he fires 2 shots, and you can barely see it. But I was able. I mean, this is my opinion of what I saw in the video. And the people hid behind a tree, and as he came up with the gun on them, he waved it at them, but then retracted it, and then started to walk away. And then he was shot as he was walking away. Okay. And on my Twitter feed, I have that video and where the mark is, or where you can kind of see where stuff is going on. But the fact is that he was still walking away. And the guy that shot him was a 24-year-old who had previous felonies for drug trafficking and other stuff. And he was pretty much let go. Oh, I'd like to mention, too, that this kid's body laid at the skate park after being shot for 6 hours, similar to what had happened to Mike Brown. He was shot and left there. Meanwhile, the kids that shot him, apparently the APD detective went there to coach him on how to go through the self-defense claim. The other thing is, too, I used to skate at that park a lot, and I had APD come up to me for having a can of beer in a bag and not ticket us, but have it, pour it out. These guys had multiple cases of beer and other bottles laying around. Like, that stuff used to never happen because we weren't so short-handed with the department. So there was a lot of things that went wrong where that all happened. But the fact is that there was 2 24-year-olds partying with a bunch of kids, and everyone's pissed drunk, and a 17-year-old's now dead because of it. And granted, the kid Jaquise Lewis's actions, to me personally, I think he had no. I mean, I see that he grabbed a gun and shot. That's my opinion's a little bit different than a lot of people, but I slowed that video down. But regardless, he was shot in the back as he was walking away, and the fact that they tried to cover it up is pretty incredible. So if his parents were first responders, the shooter, that is, this Gregory Buchanan, which for whatever reason the mainstream media won't release his name, but we did. If he did shoot him while he was walking away, then that's not self-defense, regardless. And this was a 17-year-old, and it just goes back to the whole gun violence in general, right?
Okay, so when is self-defense not self-defense? David?
It seems to me that the bigger issue here, the bigger issue is that so long as we allow the police and the powers who hire them and pay them to dehumanize and delegitimize members of the minority and poor, we will never have justice in America. We can talk about guns, police, cameras, recording devices, accountability, Rahm Emanuel hiding the fact that a policeman shot a man 17 times in Chicago while he was running away, and then he was going to reload and shoot him again on the street. You saw the asphalt rising from the earth like clouds from hell. Until we see the discussion of self-defense, police rights, civilization, law and order, none of this matters until we can convince the large majority of the American people that every single human being is in God's image made, and if you don't believe that, is a human being with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the first of those is life. Life, 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 life.
Always.
There's life. And as long as you do not recognize that another human being has a right, a fundamental moral and constitutional legal right to life, you will allow your policemen to pull out triggers. You will allow people to occupy the world with AK-47s, go into churches and shoot innocent people, go into schools and shoot innocent people, go on the street and shoot innocent people. Until we recognize that a human being is something sacred with life endowed by its creator with certain inalienable rights, the police will continue to enforce the will of the rich and the powerful, dehumanize and delegitimize life. Now, what is self-defense? Self-defense is very simple. You have to have a real, present fear that your life is in immediate danger of death. That is what it is. It is not somebody running away, 17 years old, that you treat like a skeet in a clay machine that flies into the air so your 12-gauge shotgun can turn it into powder.
Amen. Thank you very much for that, David. Now, Den Mom just wants to come in very quickly and backchat on a point that you just made earlier on. Come in, Den Mom.
Yeah, I would just like to add that you speak to the nature of the police culture and mentality, but I would contend that it goes far beyond that, especially with the nature of the corporatized mass media and the way that it corrals information for consumption by the general public. This is ordinary people. This is what we're seeing on Twitter, that people just genuinely believe this or that about something because it's what they heard. And the disparity of presentation, the disparity of the dialogue when it comes to individual cases, the things that don't even make the news at all. I mean, for every name that has a hashtag, how many others have we never, ever heard about? I can think of at least 2 or 3 for every city that I'm aware of that just don't get any press, even locally. And, just the way that different individuals are painted, or I might even hazard colored by the media. The difference between an affluenza teen and the young man, Tamir Rice, and how that impresses upon people a different notion of what they're looking at just because of the use of language. And it's not unintentional. It is not in any way unintentional. And the fact is it's contagious. And that's getting right back to the point of examining the information that comes your way and giving it its due diligence on your part, and to consider your source, consider every other source, and there's no one without bias. I have bias, you have bias, every source out in the universe has some bias, and it's not ever going to be subtractable, but you have to be able to synthesize from multiple sources, mass media, independent, etc., because it's the only way to combat this on an individual level. It really is absolutely appalling, this disparity and the way that the dialogue is presented in our culture, and it starts with ourselves to make a change.
The most important thing is that for us to understand is that words are important, and more than important, words are actually powerful. And words can formulate in our minds an opinion which is far removed from the truth. And in trying to compare the influenza teen with the young man, which is Tamir Rice, and relating to the Kendrick Johnson case with the one that we're just talking about there in Albuquerque, you're kind of thinking to yourself how the internet has leveled the playing field. We now have video footage that contradicts the news that people are trying to put out. I had a conversation with some gentlemen in the sauna this morning, as I always do each and every Saturday morning. We debate in there. And one guy turned around to me and he said this. He said, "So where do you get your news from?" Because most people in the UK only get their news from ITV, BBC and Sky News. And that news is quite limited and restricted. And we don't get none of this. We don't get none of these up-to-date killings or murders or conflicts or contradictions. And only when you had that one which we did a while back ago, where the Supreme Justice Court ordered the release of the videotape, that was Laquan Johnson. Only when that videotape was released did that actually go national here in the UK. So let's just talk about the United States of America, because we're in the UK. So what news reports do the United States of American general public rely on for their source of information that gives them a position to opinionate on something that's so conflicting and contradicting as what we're seeing here? Maybe Outlaw, you can come in here. If not, Andy, jump in. We don't do silence.
On the media? Yeah. I've been finding more and more people are going to social media to find out exactly what's going on. I think Ferguson turned that Ferguson uprising, both of them, both times, is the reason that it's actually catapulted the way people get their news off of on Twitter and online. Just because, like I mentioned, a lot of times there's shows, like the Anthony Bourdain will be on CNN or whatever when there are riots happening or there's mega movement happening, and they're covering Anthony Bourdain or jailed on CSN or, whatever. They don't put it out. So the citizens are the ones that are bringing it to the street, and the citizens are bringing it out. And it is because of social media, straight up.
And again, as I said, the internet has leveled the playing field in that respect. So therefore, we are now able to get more informative information to be able to opinionate ourselves. But that's not the general public. That's just those who choose to go in search of the truth. So we still have a problem where the majority of people that are following the news, that are supporting the negative, conflicting information, are still not getting the appropriate.
They will.
They will get it eventually, but they're not getting it yet, which is why our battle remains as fierce as it is right now. Would you not agree, Denmom?
Absolutely. I think that, in fact, Ronnie and I were having a conversation about just sort of the notion of this battle and the whole thing ongoing. And this is maybe a slight tangent, but I do think it pertains somewhat. I think, I've had a debate within my own heart and mind ongoing for some time as to, are things in fact backsliding in our culture from where they were, or in fact are they better or worse or whatever? And I think honestly it's just that things have not changed nearly as much as people would like to think that they have, and it's that all of this discourse, all of the things that we're doing here, all of this constant proactivity by activists and family members and all of this that we're trying to do on this program and everything is bringing this to the fore, is keeping the dialogue going, is actually precipitating a situation where real change can happen, that we just haven't come nearly as far in so many of these social matters as most people would choose in the comfort of their home to like to think, except for, in their heart of hearts, they know things are not equal, they're not fair, they're not functioning, and most people, there's no one exempt from it. Whether you benefit, whether it's neutral or somewhat, or you've really been hit badly by it, no one is exempt from the cost of all this. And now we finally have these platforms to truly affect real change, and there's no stopping it anymore.
So, Andy, how can you help get what you're experieing in Albuquerque to a wider audience, and what can we do?
Can I actually say something to Andy before you move on to him?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is coming in from Ninjet, in fact, that we really, all of us, I think, should thank people like Andy, who are not funded by any large corporation or even have any real funding at all in some cases, and they're doing the very, very hard work of real journalism, and that deserves everyone's support. Anyone who is getting even the least of their news from independent outlets, from live streamers, from the independent journalists, should do what they can, whether it's just a thanks for all the work you do, $5 into a funding account. Please send your thanks, because it is people like Andy who really get the information out there before it would ever hit the mainstream media, if it hit at all.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We don't hear that ever, so that's pretty awesome. Thank you.
Well, we truly believe it.
Thank you very much for that, Den Mum. And yes, we absolutely endorse that statement, Andy. And if it wasn't for guys like you, we wouldn't be able to get the information that we get.
And Andy, I want to add, this is David, I want to add, your photo I saw this week with that camera and those sharp sunglasses on Twitter was so powerful. I thought you had converted into a Halliburton contractor in Iraq. But go get them and make them wet their pants.
Yeah, that's that picture shows the angry Andy end of this whole thing. So it's kind of
let's
bad.
call it the determined Andy.
There you go. Thanks. I appreciate it.
So let's just get back to the question, which was the difficulty in which you find getting out the information that you want to get out, and how can we help?
It's hard getting it out, but you guys have been helping a lot, and that's why we any bit of information we can try to get out. We've been in a hole down here, and as a lot of, I don't know how, if you know, we've had the DOJ's been here for many, many years now. And that, like, it's always crazy to me when I see it on the mainstream media. They say, oh, the DOJ is investigating here, or is, investigating here or there. And all the people are, they see this and they're all excited. We're getting lapel cams. We got the DOJ. And I'm sitting here going, man, you guys just don't even know what your process was going to be and what you're going to go through, because nobody's heard that we've gone through all of this. Everything that all these cities are going through, we've done it. So it's tough to get the word out of here, but it is happening. It is happening, and it's happening because of independent medias like Photography is Not a Crime and anti-media. Those types are they're really pumping info out that we wouldn't. For instance, our lawsuit, I sent you guys the info on that. Well, that, until PINAC put it up, our mainstream media wasn't really touching it. They didn't want to. They don't like us anyway. But as soon as PINAC put it up, it pushed them to put it up, like they were forced to. So by having indie medias and people that are asking harder questions and not just giving city officials a platform to spew their agenda, we are asking the harder things, and we're bringing it so hard that the mainstream media is having to conform and having to do with their job. So it's hard to get it out, but it is happening slowly but surely. I mean, of course, it would be great to have a much wider platform a lot quicker, but it's happening and it is changing. So there has been not as much as like you guys said, should, but it's happening.
Okay, do you want to just come in there a minute, David?
No, I agree with what he said. The main thing is that we have to get the information out and then follow up with a powerful, and this is an incentive that we have in terms of feedback, a powerful ingathering so that we come at it all at once, whether that's at City Hall or the mayor or the police, or lifting up that victim, like Sharon in Texas, or this 17-year-old, or the boy in Chicago. These are human lives, and I think that we have to never forget it's not about details, it's not about technicals, it's not really about legal impenetrables or the Supreme Court. This is about convincing humans that this is a human life with value and a soul, and we have to educate our people to care. And until we do that, we will make it nowhere. I used to teach my medical students at the university, until a patient knows you care, they don't care what you say. Until a patient knows that you care, they don't care what you say. And that's how we activists have to be. We have to convince people that we elevate the violence above the street level into a heartfelt, democratic feeling that life matters. Black lives matter, white lives matter, all life matters. And until then, we will not succeed.
Absolutely. Andy,
Yes, sir.
For me, we've just seen the constant abuse of authority, abuse of power, corruption that has been embedded in Albuquerque history. What's the hope for the people of Albuquerque to be able to rise up and fight against this and get some kind of decent, respectful law and order in your city?
What's the hope for it? I don't know. It's hard to say. Albuquerque's a different place just simply because of our size and nature of people that live here. We're a laid back town, and unfortunately, it took an extreme case that had to be caught on film for the people to rise up, and then they disappeared. Unlike Ferguson, where they stood on the street for over 200 days straight, which is what the people should be doing when this kind of thing happens. It's hard, and we haven't seen the community out because there's been so much violence towards the police as well. And every time that happens, it shoots the movement backwards, and it shoots, a lot of people's that were on the fences ideals to kind of step back and wonder if they should support, anti-brutality because the violence is so bad. Every time a cop is shot here, there's literally propaganda that's written from the police and the mayor to, basically combat what we do. And so it's tough to get, hope. And unfortunately, and I hate saying this, but it always takes something horrific for the community to stand. And I think that if there's no justice for Keith Sandy and Dominic Perez, the murderers of James Boyd, if there's no justice for them, and if there's, that we're still in that fight, and there's no justice for any of the other families and no indictments, then we have to keep pressing to bring that attention to the people and to not let it die and not let it get swept under the rug.
It is said that Albuquerque is actually an extreme example of police abuse.
It's extreme.
And political. One second. Let me finish.
I'm sorry.
Extreme example of police abuse and political corruption, and as such, is not only interesting in itself, but a window into what is wrong across the nation. How would you respond to that?
I would say that's 100% correct. I follow this all over the country. In Albuquerque, there's very few places that can compare to the extreme level of widespread corruption. So it's not just our police department, it's our DA, it's our mayor, it's our governor, the high-ranking officials. Everybody that's in place in our city government is corrupt. Our records department, and this is, this should make national news at some time. But the lack of transparency and it's extreme. And what if we can counter even just a portion of the corruption here, it's worthwhile because it's on that kind of extreme level.
We're hoping to go. Come in, Damon.
Just a very, very quick point. I think something that's well worth mentioning right now is that people very frequently confuse those people who are against police brutality or in favor of the Black Lives Matter movement or any number of related situations, in favor of police reform for being anti-police, anti-law enforcement. And perhaps in some cases that's true. But it's such an absolute scenario of the bad apples ruining the entire bunch. All you need in any situation to really create an explosive situation are a handful of people or a small plurality of people to be over inundated with the wrong indoctrination or just terrible ideals or something, and then the whole system starts to collapse under the weight of the tragedies that they inflict. And that's not to say that everybody is in fact against I'm just saying, I feel like it should not be mistaken that to be in favor of police reform is to be against police, and that's just a clear distinction that I think a lot of people don't seem to be able to get behind.
Here's the thing. We are not anti-police. There is not an anarchy movement going on here. We're not talking, and we've said this before on police brutality shows. Me and David has advocated for this on several occasions, on several shows that we've done on unlawful killing and brutality. We're not anti-police. We're not against the police. We're not against police policing the community. We're not against community police. But the moment if you was to go to a mother and say, you know what, when I saw your son putting his hand in his pocket, I was scared. I thought he was going to pull out a gun and I shot him. But unfortunately, I made a mistake. I was wrong. Your son was not pulling out a gun, and unfortunately, it was a wrong killing. It was a wrong shooting. That would not appease the mother as much, but that's some way taking responsibility for your mistake. But the moment you plant evidence, the moment you twist the story, the moment you go to your superior and get your superior to come up with another version of events on your behalf, the moment you go to the press and tell them that this guy was a thug or a drug dealer or a gangster or a gangbanger or a bank robber or anything else in order for you to justify putting him to the ground, when you start pumping out 15 and 16 and 17 and 18 shots on a body that's laying lifeless on the ground, when you shoot somebody in the back who's running away, right, who's walking away, who's moving away, who's already in fear of their life because they don't know what you're going to do, the moment you shift the balance of responsibility from them to you, then that's when it becomes an absolutely corrupt and unbearable situation for anybody to tolerate. And that's where people like us step in. David.
Absolutely.
Come in here, David.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, come in, David.
I think that one of the things you and I have spoken about a lot, Kervin, and Andy, you may have been on that show too, is I have always felt the best way to get these empire builders who use the police force to keep down freedom in America is to use their own weapons against them, to use the law against them. And the only thing they feel is money, because from the time America was created, and if you read the American Constitution, over 50% of our Constitution deals with protecting private property. Money. So if we would use the law to sue the living dickens out of cities like Chicago and Albuquerque and Charleston, and they would have to pay billions and billions of dollars, I guarantee you things would change. The problem is that lawyers are educated and indoctrinated in the empire system. And there are very few activist lawyers, as we had for African Americans in the 50s and 60s, to go out and take our battle to court and make these people pay through the nose until they change their oppressive system in which life is devalued, delegitimized, and dehumanized. We have to hit them in their pockets. And I don't know how we can do that without developing a huge trust fund or a foundation where we educate lawyers, and the ones coming out of law school are committed to work on our behalf for 10 years. Beyond that, I don't know how it's going to happen.
Well, here's the thing. Our very good friend Charlie Grapsby has come on this show and spoken.
Hi, Charlie.
Has spoken many times on the Freedom of Information Act. And the bottom line is this. Most people generally steer away from using the very same laws that are available to them that are being used against them. And the big problem with that is when we start fighting outside of that realm, we lose every time. It's about using the very same laws that are being used against us for us, because the bottom line is wrong can't make right no matter how you spell it. Wrong is wrong, right is right. That's a fact. But when we're fighting the battle in the wrong arena, we're always going to lose. We need to take the battle back into the right arena. And taking it into the right arena means using the Freedom of Information Act, means taking out lawsuits against those, means fighting against them, using the very same law they use against us to fight back against them, because then right fights right and only right can win. Come in, Andy, because the bottom line is you also worked alongside Charlie, especially with this Freedom of Information Act and the subsequent enforcement of going in there and getting that information in order for you guys to be able to support and function the way that you guys do. So tell us a bit more about that and how that comes about.
I'm sorry, Curvin. I'm trying to grab I couldn't hear that last part of what you were saying.
Well,
I heard Charlie, and then you came back at the end there.
Right, we were talking about the Freedom of Information Act and the fact that you guys have used that relentlessly in order for you to support some of the allegations and claims that you're fighting against, and how people can be best equipped to use that so that they're fighting the right fight in the right arena using the very same laws that are being used against them.
Well, they can use them like we're using them. I mean, like posting the videos that you're after on YouTube and just keeping it relevant, using records to keep things relevant and proof that these are actually happening. Learning the records laws are very easy. I mean, I shouldn't say easy, but they're very straightforward. Once you have that power of knowing that you understand that there's always a paper trail or a video trail, and understanding that power, it puts it back in your hands. It takes it away from them. And the reason that the police target the poor and the ones that are in financial problems and whatever is because they know that they don't know that they have this power against them. And if they knew that, they wouldn't do what they do.
Come in, Team Den, Mum. I'm sure there was something that you wanted to add to this. I'm trying to scroll up and read, but I can't quickly, so maybe you just want to jump in and bring it in.
Well, I think that in many respects, I mean, we've got plenty more to talk about this particular broadcast, but so much of this, I think, is this all really does tie together. I mean, it seems like we're doing sort of a chapter-like thing today with wrapping up on the last 2 weeks and now Albuquerque and all of that, but I think so much of this is actually kind of a unified perspective. It's modeling, it's test cases. Albuquerque is a model for how a city can deal with this crisis and the police brutality. What we're doing with Team Den Mother is a model. It's a concept model for rallying community support around each other, around places like Albuquerque and other cities that have been impacted so deeply by all of this. It's a matter of modeling this and creating a new, reframed concept of how to do these things, because we've never lived in a society like this before where we could do such things that are removed, that we could all be on the radio from all these different places right now that we're all coming in from, and to have these dialogues and to affect change. And we need to look at the test cases and the stew pots and these extreme scenarios that Albuquerque is such a great example of, and really learn from that and take that model and run with it, and also know where what's going on there, it does not translate, and to be flexible in the way that we approach things as is appropriate to a case-by-case scenario, whether that be an individual online harasser or the culture of a given city or family dynamics within a given case.
David, how would you suggest that we did things differently? How could we do things differently to change community, to inspire community, to promote community, to get the community to rise up in a positive way?
Do you mean community by those of us who are activists, or do you mean general?
The bottom line is it's going to take more than activists to make a change. Activists will initiate and instigate, but it's going to take the community to rise up to be able to take their city back.
I don't know. I mean, it's beyond me. All I do know that sometimes there's no magic pill. How did we defeat HIV? We didn't really with AIDS. Somebody's typing.
Somebody's typing profusely. Can you mute your mic, please?
We didn't solve the AIDS problem is not solved, and this problem of police brutality and injustice is never going to be solved. It hasn't been since Jesus walked the earth, Moses crossed the Red Sea. It's not going to happen. But what we can do is treat it like an AIDS virus or HIV situation where somebody's typing, where somehow we are able to find the symptoms, a cure. So if you've got a type of skin cancer, we solve that. If you have a throat disorder, we solve that. If your brain is being affected, we solve that. If your blood cell count is low, we solve that. So gradually, with cameras, with activists like Andy out on the street, with people like you and Sharon on the radio, with writers like me who address the issue every day to my multitudes, to the police by punishing them, to automobile cameras, police cameras, cell phones in people's hands. Congress gradually making more laws by taking people out of jail and prison, by recovering items of evidence and having forensic studies a little more independent of the police, by taking away by taking away absolute control from prosecutors, by holding malfeasant and malevolent prosecutors accountable for bad conduct. You know, the Bible says in Deuteronomy that when you accuse someone falsely and they go to court and they're found not guilty, all right, then you have to suffer the crime, the punishment they would have received. So if you charge somebody with stealing, they get 2 years. If they're found guilty, they're found not guilty, then you've got to go serve 2 years. If we could hold prosecutors accountable, for example, now a prosecutor and police force can come out against somebody like Andy. They can accuse Andy, or are you guys there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yes.
Okay. So
just listening, wrapped with attention.
So let me say, if I accuse Andy of a crime, inhibiting a policeman, for example, from his lawful duties, I put him in jail, he's got to post bond. Now he's got to hire a lawyer. He's going to have $25,000 out of his pocket. The prosecutor doesn't pay 1 penny. The police doesn't pay 1 penny. The taxpayers pay that inhibition of their freedom to allow Andy to go out and do the hard work to preserve the constitutional rights we have. Now, if, for example, somebody's typing, if a prosecutor, for example, came out and he charged Andy and the police charged Andy and Andy won in court, then that prosecutor and that city would have to pay Andy all of his law fees plus the time he spent in jail, lost wages, plus 3 times in damages. I guarantee you would put a stop to it. So my answer to you, somebody's typing. So my answer to you in a global situation is very simple. We use Band-Aids, we use medicine, we use pills, we use testing. We do everything medicine does to solve the symptoms of an incurable disease. And by solving the symptoms every day, the disease loses its power. And that's what we have to do. I do not think there's a magic pill.
There isn't. I just want to draw back to something that I had experienced.
I mean, does that make sense?
It makes absolutely sense. But let me just draw you guys to.
Let me ask Andy.
Now, one second, David.
Let me ask Andy. Andy, tell me this. What happens to you if some malevolent prosecutor with misconduct has you arrested tomorrow because you pissed off the police chief, puts you in jail and post bond, then you've got to hire an attorney, come to jail, your name is ruined in the newspaper, they take your camera, your property. Tell me what your life is going to be like.
It's going to be a long process of trying to get your name cleared and back out of that. A long time, many years at that.
You know, we
long
had
fights of trying. I mean, and even at that, you're not guaranteed either. There's people that are going through that exactly that thing. Jesse Ben in Colorado, he's going through that exact thing. He was arrested for protesting on the street. Cop said that he was obstructing traffic, which is a very common thing now to get arrested for protesting. And his name isn't smeared just because he's an indie journalist, so you can't really do that to us anyway. But he's fighting the legal process, and it's going to be costly and lengthy. And they can make your life a living hell. In an instant.
And then they can put you on. They can convict you of a misdemeanor or a felon. If you become a felon, your life is pretty much ruined. But once they do that, the judge can then say, now, as a condition of your probation of not going to prison, for 5 years, you're not allowed to use a camera or a computer. Now you're out of business.
You know.
Oh, I'd love it if they tried doing that to me. I would. I mean,
I'll hold the camera for you.
I've never seen that, but
I'm just pointing out the way the powers that be in our country have the ability to forever curtail a person's commitment to fighting the war on oppression and arbitrary rule and the empire that we call America. And the power they have is immense. And it's not so much against somebody like Andy. It's so much against somebody who may consider seeing Andy as a role model and beginning to do what he's doing. And that becomes the snowball of changing the world. And that's what they use examples for.
You know, the funny thing is miscarriages of justice, whether unlawful killing, the whole works has not been exempt to the United States of America. We've experienced it here in the UK. Not so much now as we did back then, and specifically against people of colour, especially in the 80s and the early 90s. There were a whole series of events of especially people that were non-English. The Irish had it with the IRA, where people were pulled out of communities who had nothing to do with the IRA, and there were several cases where people went to jail and was released on appeal. But we also had a significant amount of black individuals who were arrested and charged for very, very serious crimes, in particular murders, especially when the evidence particularly pointed away from them, and yet they were still found guilty. And we have the same case. We've had Satish on here before, David, who talked about the Cardiff 5 and the Cardiff 3. And I just want to go back to that for just a moment to redefine what David was talking about when he talked about once you've been charged with something and everything else. Because when the Cardiff 3 were charged and they were found guilty, we actually had a black MP, which is it's relative to what you guys have over there, which is a senator, right? There's senators that represent your local counties and communities. We had a local MP in our community. Not only was she black, but she was of the community. She was born of the community. Her sons played with us. Her sons played with those who were convicted. So this is a community of people that knew each other, grew up with each other, ate with each other, went to school with each other. And when the Cardiff 5 was sentenced and found guilty, we went to Betty Campbell, and I'm going to out her here. We actually went to her for support. And didn't get it. We went to her to plead for our cases in the Houses of Parliament and didn't get it. We went to her and asked her to give us advice and encouragement as where we could go next to try and get this appeal moving forward, because we were convinced, we knew that these guys were innocent, and we still didn't get it, and it was the people of the community who rose up. I'm not taking all the credit, but as chairman of the campaign, I managed to rally around enough people to come and stand on the streets. We brought the whole of Cardiff City to a halt, to a standstill. We went and we brought London to a standstill. We went to the Court of Appeal and brought that to a standstill. But it was the rise of the community in the end that brought about the victory that 4 years later was to release those innocent people out of prison for a murder that everybody knew that they couldn't have committed. But the biggest problem that we had was actually getting the authorities, and most importantly our local councillor and MP, who should have represented us, who should have stood for us, irrespective of colour and the fact that she was from the community, but as our local representative, she should have stood for us, and she chose not to. And that's some of the biggest battles that we may have, is actually finding those that have the influence, that have the authority to stand in that gap, which is why it's so important to mobilize the community, equip the community, inform the community, encourage the community, so that they themselves can find the resources for them to rise up and go out and meet these adversities right in its face. And so therefore, when we look at Team Denmark and we look at the Issues Today community as we're developing that, this is what we're trying to formulate here, so that we can actually put together a test model that others can actually replicate in their communities, in their countries, wherever they might be, so they can fight this injustice, which is, believe you me, damaging. Because let me just say this, Tony Parris's father never lived to see him released. He died while his son was still in prison for a murder that he didn't commit. And that was one of the most heartbreaking things that you could see, was a man going to his grave under the impression that his son may be guilty of a murder that he didn't commit. How do you escape from that? And let me go to Andy with this. No Andy? Silence.
Andy.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you again. What did you say, Kerwin?
I'm not going to be able to repeat that. So maybe David might just want to come in here.
I think you're right. I don't have anything to add. I think you said it quite eloquently. It just shocks me the way the powers that be to preserve their wealth and property will do anything at all to abridge our rights and to corrupt the law to ensure that they're on top.
Absolutely. Now, we're still trying to find Outlaw. Is Outlaw in yet?
Looks like it.
He's in, but he's still not on the chat. He's in on the chat.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, Outlaw, we're talking about community now. How do we inspire, encourage, mobilize the community to get behind the action that needs to be taken? Because one of the things that I was just talking about, if you heard what I was saying, was that our inability to rely on our senators or our councillors or those people with influence and power that could make quicker headway because of the authority that they have, but choose not to. So how do we mobilize? How do we encourage? How do we inspire community to get together so they can fight against the very things that we're seeing taking place in Albuquerque, for example?
We can't fight the system as it stands on their terms. We have to just start creating the new systems, the better systems, and lead by example and show that there's a better way. You go to your neighbor's house instead of being afraid of them, knock on the door, tell them we're having a block party, a potluck. You hold a community meeting of a certain neighborhood. You guys get together, buy a plot of land, and have your own community garden with vegetables and stuff like that the government has no regulations on, and it's not blasted with all kinds of GMO crap. There are things, very simple things that we can do that we don't do because the government has spread its dissent among us and taught us to fear one another instead of just coming up and talking to one another. I talk to people on a regular basis, strangers all the time. It's actually a great thing, quite enlightening. If you're going to have a true knowledge, a true point of view, you should look at everyone, your neighbors, the cop down the road, the person who serves you your coffee in the morning. All of them have a different point of view. All of them have different facts that they've researched, been led to believe, etc. And you can learn from everyone, and you can teach everyone.
Okay.
I would have to agree 100% with that. Like talking to people, just because I think there is a breakdown with people in the way they actually communicate face to face, because now they're so used to communicating online and sitting behind Facebook, and just talking to people in person is humongous because sometimes it breaks those stupid party lines down. And the homeless too. I mean, when you see homeless people, instead of walking by them or just giving them money, even just talking to them and saying what's up is so powerful, and you can learn so much just from that. I think if you want to talk about community building, it starts at ground level and basic at just going to your neighbor and talking to them.
You know, funny you should go into the homeless fear, because it's a particular passion of mine, and I have a relationship with the homeless community right here in Coventry, not just through my charity in particular, but personal, and they will still come up to me in the street, although I don't have a hands-on as I used to. But I can't go into the city centre. I can't go to certain shopping malls without being stopped and asked. But for me, it's about treating people as they matter. It's letting people know, every individual, no matter who they are, where they are, or what they are, that they matter. And that's all. That's the least respect platform that you can start on, is showing somebody that they matter, that they are particularly significant. Now, I do believe that Denman wants to quickly come in here, so let me just bring her in very quickly.
Yeah, and it's quite brief, really. It comes straight back to where you were at with your transition from my little troll report earlier, that, people have this sort of notion that they're insular, when they're behind their monitors and they can't see other people, that there's not actually real people on the other side. They can say whatever they like. But it does extend beyond online into real life. If you just stay in your own little bubble, your comfort zone, whatever, and you never just sort of reach out and meet different sorts of people or extend yourself into different communities, or just take a walk around your neighborhood. And I mean, how many people actually know the names of all their neighbors any longer? I mean, simple things like this. And the more you can humanize other people, the more you can't but take them seriously as individuals, the more you can't but at least appreciate that while their values may not be your values, that they inform their lives and enrich them and make them into the person that they are, that you enjoy, or that drives you crazy, or that borrowed your lawnmower and never returned it for a week, because now they're a real person with a personality and a family and all manner of things that you had no idea about until the day you said hello. And whether that be your neighbor or a homeless individual on the street or your waiter at a restaurant, everyone out there is a person. Somebody on the other side of the internet is also a person. And it just bears remembering wherever we interact with other human beings, because we do it all the time in this world now.
The funny thing is, we don't anymore. We don't approach each other anymore. People are walking around with such scrutiny and suspicion. We look at each other from a distance and wonder what's going on behind people's closed doors, and don't open our doors to people and strangers anymore. You walk up to somebody's house. I go out and I deliver regularly, and before you even get to the front door, there's a notice sticking on the door. No strange callers, no callers. They're already.
See, that's rather my point. We interact or we distance, but we don't engage. Engagement is.
But yet at the same time, people are hiding behind fake personas online. They're hiding behind fake personalities online. They're hiding behind fake IDs and fake names online and pretending to be things that they're not online. But yet in person, out in the real world, they're struggling to be who they are.
But this is part of the post-World War II American empire sociological development.
Cult of individuality?
I do believe that. The cities were great melting pots where people met. An Orthodox Jew, a Muslim, a Christian, you lived next to each other, you struggled together, you worked together, you striked together, you forced fair wages, you forced equality on the streetcars. You did everything together. And then after World War II came this great individualism and the suburbs, and you moved out of the cities. You broke the communities. Whites moved here, Jews moved there, Hispanics moved there, blacks lived here, and you have this whole division of America breaking up from the soup that was the kettle into a salad bowl. And you got tomato here and lettuce there, and nothing is melting together. Nothing. And the sauce that held America together went bitter. It went very bitter. And now, as these people were saying, Andy and Outlaw are saying...
Looks beautiful.
Right, guys, somebody needs to mute their mic.
The problem is now we don't have this unifying element in America because of these suburbs. We don't talk to each other. We don't know each other. We're afraid of each other. And every day we hear from Republicans and Democrats alike, fear, 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 fear. Don't talk to your neighbor. Lock your doors. Call the police. Call 911. It's all fear. It's a division process. It's like the universe. Instead of us in our world being stardust, coming together, creating something majestic. We're like the big universe spreading out further and further and further, and we don't know a nebulae from a planet, from a meteor to a comet. And until we change that, and I love so much what Outlaw was saying here, and Denmom are saying here, until we change that, and know our neighbors, work together, live together, strive together, struggle for the good things together, we cannot solve the problems we are facing in the world. The empire will break apart. It will break apart.
Absolutely. I hear you clearly. Denmom, do you want to come in there?
I really feel David's covered that one brilliantly, honestly. For once, I may be at a loss for words. He's really on a roll today, isn't he?
David's on fire. He was off last week and he saved it all for us this week.
Absolutely, he did.
You know, we are going to.
Liverpool sent me their soccer ball.
Oh wow! Well, listen, I was actually in Liverpool yesterday, so yeah, maybe that was an inspirational thing. But we are going to be. I do believe that we're going to reconvene on this subject and the issues that are going on in Albuquerque next week for another show. We're going to have another part 2 on this because there is just so much for us to cover and so little time for us to do it in. But. The Chavez case, for example. Andy, where are you?
Yeah, I'm here.
The Chavez case was a very particular case which caused significant problems and showed the extreme corruption and didn't go the way that they expected. Do you want to expand on that just a bit for us?
The Levi Chavez case? Which one?
That's the one, I think.
Levi Chavez was the police officer? Is that the one you're talking about? Who murdered his wife?
Yep.
Yeah, that's that went down right before I moved back to New Mexico. I was in Colorado when that happened, but I do know a little bit about it. But yeah, that's an APD officer who murdered his wife and was completely let go because of who he was. To be honest with you, Dino knows that case a whole lot better than I do.
We are, in fact, the bottom line is our group call is absolutely full right now, and I can't get her in. I would love to, but the system's not allowing me to add her. So unfortunately,
Okay.
I have a question for Andy, actually, though. Just the name struck a chord there. Were there not actually two Chavez cases? Ronaldo or something would be another one? Was that something?
Ronaldo Chavez, the records custodian. He's the one who just filed the whistleblower lawsuit against Police Chief Eden, a couple of APD attorneys, former Chief Ray Schultz, and this whistleblower lawsuit that he is filed is kind of exploded. It dropped a bomb on the city because they had been right under the gun with all these other people that had sued, and not only individual citizens, but the news media had been suing to get records, and they're now the records custodian, Ronaldo Chavez. He dropped a bomb on everything that we said he had been doing. Including our lawsuit that we have. He pretty much verified everything that we were contending, and they're saying, look, this is what's happening. It's a systemic problem, not just one case of them not getting videos. There's some very high-profile cases here where they've literally destroyed evidence, or we believe they have, and this is going to lead into several years worth of court hearings, and could be a major game changer for the way that other departments around the country handle their records, because when the wind gets out of how bad and how corrupt it is and how they're going down, they're not, it could really change how other departments release records. It's actually so much it's hard to explain in just this short segment. I think you guys were talking about doing another segment on that all in itself.
If you guys are available,
definitely segment worthy.
Yeah, if you guys are available, we want to come and do this again next week.
Yeah, because that's I could seriously go on about that, the depth of that. We're talking surveillance also. You guys talked about the government trolls, where they have hired people to go on social media and troll and try to find information on where protests are or where community action that oppose their beliefs are. That's very real, and we have legitimate proof of them infiltrating a peaceful protest in August or June of 2014. That it was a protest that had followed the James Boyd shooting, and they came in and they were spotted by a reporter. Undercovers were spotted by a local reporter, and so we started digging through all of our information, and we found many undercover agents and moles that had come in and spied on us, and we have legitimate proof of this. So it kind of ties to that whole Ronaldo Chavez is saying all these things happen. Well, people weren't really believing us. They're like, oh, come on. You think the government went in and took your photos and put them in a government database, or you think that they have a file on you? You must wear a tinfoil hat. No, that is real. And we have like real proof of that.
What are the implications? Very briefly, because we don't want to dig too much into this, because we've got a whole show dedicated to this next week, and we deeply apologise for not being able to bring Dinah in today.
No, it's fine.
But we're gonna do a whole show on this next week. But what are the implications on this destroying the record files?
I don't know. I'm hoping that people are going to lose jobs, because the people that have been doing this are part of the reason that nobody's been held accountable for their actions. That's why we had more police shootings than New York and LA combined, because nobody was being held accountable. And until they're fired and held accountable, we need all new people. We need people that care, that are not corrupt. We need a whole new system. And this lawsuit could take down Chief Eden, Mayor Barry, the chief operating officer, Rob Perry. These Catherine Levy, the city APD attorney, these people have single-handedly been responsible for not holding these cops accountable, and now they might actually go down. I mean, we're putting Chief Eden on the stand ourselves to find out if there's been destruction of public records. I mean, if that's you're destroying evidence, and you're a public official. What is the outcome there? It should be not only should they lose their jobs, but they should be put in prison. That's the goal. I mean, we have to push them out. And the first step we're hoping for is to get them out of office. The chief of police, our mayor, our chief administrative officer, our DA, they all have to go, every one of them. And that's why we can't stress enough how extreme the corruption is. It's not just a case of one department. It's every single aspect of our city and state government. And once we change our city and state governments and we take control of them, then we can really start hammering on the federal government. We can really start saying, no, this is our land and our rules. We're going to do it our way.
David, when you look at what Andy's just been talking about, and we're only going to touch on this because next week we're going to delve into this in a much more deeper, pragmatic way. But getting them not just to trial, but a conviction has to be what needs to be achieved in order to send a message right across the country, right?
That's right. I mean, what else? How much more powerful can it get? Look what happened when Holtzclaw got his prison time. That sent shockwaves through the police community, knowing, look, you can't just go raping people because you think they're not going to come forward. Your ass is going to get held accountable. And until that kind of stuff happens, they're just going to. I mean, you can almost guarantee they'll just continue, even with the lies on them.
And I would add to that the arrest and indictment for murder of the South Carolina case where a man was shot sent shockwaves so immense throughout the system that the FBI director Comey came out and really carried a threat from the police to America. And I really disagree with him in doing this, but he said police throughout America are they stopped doing their jobs because they're afraid if they enforce the law, they might be sued or demoted or fired. And therefore, he was implicitly saying to us, back off the police now or else you may not have them. And I say the opposite. Continue doing what you're doing to the police and we may have a country.
Agreed. We're getting up to the last...
The problem is, let me say this too. People in this country are uneducated. We're the only first world country in which teachers are at the bottom of the class structure. They're paid less than nurses, paid less than LPNs who change diapers and clean up old people's poop. They're paid less than dog catchers. Teachers are minimized in our society because we minimize education, because we want people who are not educated. And the problem is, as a result of that, America is sitting on top of a $330 trillion gold mine, and it's called people. Our 330 million people, of which 80% are middle class or lower, they are great resources that are ignored, oppressed, dehumanized, delegitimized, and put down. Their talents are squashed. And we're losing the genius of 80 to 90% of our people because the rich people, the powerful people, are more interested in retaining their money and their power than developing the creative instinct of the greatest and freest people ever known to humankind and has been an example since the 20th century to the rest of the world, which is today in large places like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, far freer than we are ourselves. And the national military industrial security state has oppressed these people. Now, I'll tell you one more thing. I've been around a lot of rich people. I don't mean millionaires. I mean, I have personally known 7 or 8 billionaires. And you know my opinion? They're boring. The richer you become in America, the more boring you become, the less educated you become, because you are so entranced by everybody kissing your tuchus that you don't have the energy to pick up a book, and read something of value. All you want to hear is that your tuchus is being massaged by the tongue of a sycophant who wants what you have.
Oh, David, you've got a way with words today.
David, you are absolutely on fire.
Lost time last week. I'll take the massage after the broadcast, all right?
Okay. Well, listen, guys. We're going to tie the show up now. We're into the last 10 minutes. Outlaw, are you still here? Okay, we're going to swiftly move across to Andy. Outlaw, you're here.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted you to round up things in your own words as you've heard it tonight, and don't forget to hit them hard has been the message that we've been getting. We've been prompted to hit them hard and encourage them to make sure that they're back for next week's absolutely enthralling and mouth-watering episode. So how do you round up what we've discussed on this particular show today, and how do you bring that to a close for us?
Realistically, everybody needs to start to try to see things from others' point of view and their perspective. And we need to unite. We cannot be afraid to talk to each other. We cannot be afraid to discuss any topic, no matter how controversial it is, as long as we keep it constructive. We need to move forward beyond the fear and beyond the segregation and division that they brought among us. Otherwise, the American empire is basically going to put all of us into some kind of prison system at some point, and we will be nothing more than wage slaves, and the option to be free will be a thing of the past.
Thank you very much, Outlaw. Andy, we've spent some time with you in Albuquerque tonight. You've had an opportunity to tell us one or two things that are on your mind and what's going on in your particular part of the world. We really do look forward to having you back next week, where we're going to delve into this and some other issues in a much more deeper and fashionable manner. But for now, based on what we've discussed tonight and how you feel about what's going on in Albuquerque, what message do you want to send out to the general populace that are listening to us right across the world tonight? And don't forget, as we've been told, hit them hard.
Well, first of all, thanks for having us again. We're really trying to get this message out of the desert Southwest. It doesn't make it out to national news, and I think that overall, to keep an eye on not only your city government but your media. Watch them. Watch how they say things. Words are powerful. That was the thing I probably enjoyed the most out of this program, was talking about how incredibly powerful each and every word is that is said in the public forum regarding issues. Don't just take it at face value. Form your own opinion. You have your own brain. You have your own abilities to research. And just because somebody's barricaded doesn't mean that they have a couch in front of the door with an AR pointed at police. It's that kind of wording that can be very, very dangerous. But once again, thank you for having us on, and I look forward to talking about this public records debacle and some of the other garbage that's been going on down here next week. Hopefully we can get Charlie and Dinah in on it.
Yeah, we will get that in and get it sorted out from the very beginning. So we'll have a full host of guys that are going to be on this. We're going to be right on the ball. Just before I move over to Denmom, let's bring in Ronnie. Ronnie, are you still there?
I'm still here.
Ronnie, we
did my time. I paid for my crime.
We did, and it's really great to have somebody from the outside looking in as to what we're trying to accomplish here on issues today and Team Den Mother. And I'd just like to ask your opinion on your final thoughts, basically on what you've heard here today, on the way that we use your music, the reason why we use your music, and the reason why you let us use your music. And that would be a great place for you to start.
Well, you got the music. Use the music. You got the confirmation in writing from both parties, Martel Malavasi and myself, which is already copywritten through SGAE and BMI, and we are the sole copywriters and the writers and the performers of that song. So you've got our confirmation, so all the trolls, back up.
Right, I'm going to come right into Team Den Mum, and Team Den Mum, I want you to just round it up for me, and you got time, so take your time.
Well, I mean, I think just launching off of everything that everyone just said in their own raps. I mean, there's so much that can be said about this, and these 2 hours, they just fly by, don't they? But at the end of the day, so much of this comes down to when we're trying to engage people's interests, and we're trying to get the actual truth out there, like Andy works so hard to do, and we're trying on this program so very hard to do, that for most people, though, they're not on the radio. They're not. Anyway, there's no easily accessible, viable platforms for individuals or communities, especially disenfranchised, marginalized communities, to be heard. And, people get corralled into these limited spaces, and life goes quiet, and politics shuts down, and what spaces exist, like Twitter, for instance, are constrained by these negative influences. And that's why, the hashtag that we've had rolling for so long and have been monitoring is, sort of policing our own and making sure that the dialogue does stay at an elevated level so that solutions can be achieved and the naysayers can be made to go just a bit quieter so the work can get done. And ultimately, the solution seems to be to create a consciously viable public sphere for all manner of discourse that is important to the creation of and sustainability of proper democracy, creating these models, conscious engagement on an individual and community level, whether it's with your neighbors, as we were saying, or the waiter down the street, or your homeless population, or just people on the internet who happen to also actually be real people and not just nicknames with an @ sign in front of them. We need to also remember that it doesn't change in a minute. It never changes in a minute. We have these tools at our hands. They're not perfect tools, but we can use the tools and utilize them, whatever's at hand at this time, until we can create a better system. And at the end of the day, the message of Teen Dead Mother is not about trolls. It is not about harassment. It's just a symptom of the wider problem. All we can stress to everyone every single day is that we, as a community of activists and of human beings on this earth, are one family, and we truly believe that love wins, and that is what's going to cause us to win. Maybe not today, and maybe not tomorrow, but eventually we will win, because love will lead the day.
And that's the one. There's hope. David, 2 minutes to wrap up so that you can leave me with at least 1 minute. Hi, David.
David.
Hi, David.
He's trying to get back. He dropped out.
Okay, 1 second. Let me just get David back in. Oh, come on. Where are you?
Where's that coming from?
Let me get David back in. I'm calling David back in because David, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, you've got 2 minutes to wrap up to leave me with 1 minute.
I am grateful everybody was with us today. I'm happy about Den Mom settling our den like a warm chihuahua. And I'm going to say something. Yeah, you're a very sweet girl. Now I'm going to say something, but it's not from me. It's from the great emancipator. And I think it's a good reminder for all of us, because we can get very involved in our pursuit for justice and lose sight that we also have to remain humble if we're to be open to other people, that homeless person, that poor person, that rich person, whoever it is. And it's from Abraham Lincoln. I have been driven many times upon my knees by the overwhelming conviction that I had nowhere else to go. My own wisdom and that of all about me seemed insufficient for the day. We all have those thoughts, but we also can await a sunrise upon which we can find the light to illuminate another day, to continue the fight. And at the end of the day, all we can say is we did the best we could. Thank you very much for today.
Well, thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Again, let me just cap it up with it's about the discourse, restoring a space and engaging in it. Now, let me just remind you that you can find us at Team Den Mother on Twitter, and you can direct message us through that, or just find us directly at on our Twitter handles. We are all available. And don't forget to use the hashtag #LoveWins, because that's what we're about, and that's what we're presenting to the table. Albuquerque is a model for what's taking place around the world. Not just the corruption, but the fight back by the activists such as Andy and Dinah and those that will be with us, Charlie Gratsby, next week to talk about that in a much deeper detail. It is the model for what's taking place around the country, both the corruption and the fight back. And if we can find a way to project that out there so that people can actually see how this victory can be accomplished and achieved, then we're in a position to be able to offer the hope that so many people are seeking. And do remember that we are here each and every Saturday night, 6 till 8. My name is Kervin Julian. This is Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio. And I want to thank you all for taking part and listening, tuning in, and being a part of this great movement that's taking place right here on Worldwide Internet. We'll be back same time, same place, next Saturday, 6 o'clock. But for tonight, my friends, thank you very much. We're out of here. I always do that. Let's just get rid of that. And
it's time for your new DJ here on World Jam Global Radio. As you know, World Jam Global DJs transmit from around the world. All viewers, please wait 30 seconds after this transmission. Then press play for your new DJ.
World Jam Global Radio, this is Clarity.
Kevin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Here's the thing. I don't know how many people are left on this call. We're still going out live.
I'm still here.
We're still going out live at the minute because the
I thought the music was on. Sorry.
Yeah, I did have the music on. We can carry on talking for just a little bit because the next DJ, his encoder is frozen. We can carry on.